The wild alien woman was saved by one human man. His life was never the same. Violet skies. The twin moons of Lumenthea cast their pale glow over the luminescent forest as Naira sprinted barefoot through the undergrowth. The ground beneath her feet vibrated with the approaching footfalls of a creche beast, its 6 legs pounding the earth in hungry pursuit. Her pulse raced as she darted between the bioluminescent trees, her violet skin reflecting the ambient light in a pattern that would normally help her blend with the forest. But tonight, the wound in her side betrayed her with a trail of indigo blood. "Keep moving," she whispered to herself in her native tongue. The last survivor of the northern Silvari tribe, Naira had spent 3 cycles alone since the Vexian raiders had scattered her people across the stars. Her fingers instinctively touched the ceremonial markings that adorned her face, the last connection to a family she might never see again. The creche beast's roar shattered her thoughts. Naira's legs trembled as she pushed forward, knowing her strength was fading. The injury she'd sustained while gathering healer's root had weakened her more than she'd anticipated. As she broke through the tree line into a clearing, her vision blurred, and the world tilted beneath her feet. Just as her knees buckled, an unfamiliar sound cut through the night, a harsh, mechanical whine followed by a flash of blue light. The creche beast howled in pain and retreated into the darkness. Naira tried to stand to face this new threat, but her body finally surrendered to exhaustion. Through half-closed eyes, she saw a figure approach, bipedal like her own people, but different. The skin was pale, not purple like hers or the blue-green of the northern tribes. As consciousness slipped away, she registered a strange face looking down at her with an expression she couldn't read. Elian Parker had never expected to find intelligent life on his first solo expedition to Lumenthea. The planet had been classified as presentient, rich with exotic flora and fauna but devoid of advanced civilization. Yet here was unmistakable evidence to the contrary. A humanoid woman with distinctly alien features, clearly wounded and in distress. "Hello? Can you understand me?" he asked, knowing his universal translator wouldn't have her language programmed. The woman's eyes fluttered closed as she collapsed completely. Elian quickly assessed her wound, a deep gash that needed immediate attention. His scientific expedition had suddenly transformed into a rescue mission. With careful movements, he lifted her surprisingly light form and carried her back to his research pod, nestled in the valley below. Inside the small habitat module, Elian laid the alien woman on his examination table. Under the bright lights, her features were even more striking. Her skin a rich lavender hue with subtle patterns that seemed to shift with her breathing. Her face bore intricate markings that suggested culture and ritual, not random decoration. "You're safe now," he murmured, as he applied antiseptic gel to her wound, "though I doubt you understand a word I'm saying." As a xenobotanist, Elian had come to Lumenthea to study its remarkable plant life, not to make first contact with an intelligent species. The implications were staggering, and potentially career-ending if he'd violated protocols. But watching the gentle rise and fall of the woman's chest, he knew he couldn't have left her to die. When dawn broke, painting the sky in hues that strangely matched the woman's skin, Elian sat beside her, wondering what would happen when she awoke. Would she be frightened? Aggressive? Would she see him as a savior or an enemy? He got his answer when her eyes snapped open, eyes the color of amber with vertical pupils that widened in the dim light. In one fluid motion, she was on her feet, backing away from him with the grace of a practiced warrior, despite her injury. "I mean you no harm," Elian said softly, raising his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "You were hurt. I helped you." The woman's eyes narrowed as she assessed him, her posture alert despite the obvious pain she must be feeling. Then, to Elian's surprise, she placed a hand over her heart and spoke a single word. "Nira." "Trust in the darkness, Elian," he responded, mirroring her gesture by placing his hand over his heart. He pointed to himself again. "Elian," Naira watched him with cautious fascination. This strange being had saved her life. That much was clear from the bandaged wound at her side and the memory of the retreating creche beast. Yet everything about him was foreign. His pale skin that lacked the protective pigments of her people, the odd coverings on his body, and the metallic dwelling they stood within. She took a tentative step forward, wincing slightly. "Elian," she repeated, the unfamiliar name awkward on her tongue. Her eyes darted around the habitat module, taking in the blinking lights and strange instruments. Elian smiled encouragingly and slowly reached for a small device on the table. Naira tensed immediately, her body shifting into a defensive stance despite her injury. "It's okay," he said softly, activating the holographic display. Images of plants native to Lumenthia appeared floating in the air between them. Naira's eyes widened in wonder. Over the next several days, they developed a rudimentary form of communication. Elian was a quick study, recording and analyzing the musical tones and patterns of Nira's language. For her part, Naira proved remarkably adaptable, picking up basic human words and phrases with surprising speed. As the moons cycled through their phases, Naira's wound healed, and with it the distance between them diminished. She showed Elian which plants were safe to touch and which would release toxins at the slightest contact. He in turn shared stories of Earth through pictures and simple words. One evening, as they sat outside the habitat watching the bioluminescent forest come alive with nightfall, Naira placed her hand over Elian's. The touch sent an unexpected warmth through him. "Your world," she said in her improving but still halting human speech. "Many people? Like you?" Elian nodded. "Many different people. Different colors, different languages, but none quite like you." The admiration in his voice was unmistakable. Naira's expression grew solemn. "My people scattered, alone now." She traced one of the markings on her arm. "Last of Northern Silvari. Raiders came, took many. Others ran." Understanding dawned on Elian. She wasn't just injured when he found her. She was a refugee, possibly the last of her kind in this region. His heart ached for her loss. "I'm sorry," he said simply, knowing the words were inadequate. They sat in silence as the forest symphony swelled around them, the clicking of nocturnal insects and the distant calls of arboreal creatures. In that quiet moment, something shifted between them. No longer just two beings from different worlds, but two souls who had found each other across the vastness of space. The next morning, Naira woke Elian with urgent gestures. "Must move now." "What is it?" he asked, immediately alert. "Vexian scouts." Her expression was grim. "They hunt for me." "For any Silvari?" Elian didn't hesitate. Within an hour, they had packed essential supplies and abandoned the habitat module. Naira led them deeper into the forest to places where the canopy grew so dense that the light barely penetrated, creating a perpetual twilight. In a hollow beneath the roots of an ancient tree, they made a temporary shelter. As night fell, Naira explained in her growing vocabulary what had happened to her people. The Vexians, a warlike species from a neighboring system, had come searching for Lumenthian crystal, a rare mineral with powerful energy properties. They cared nothing for the tribes who considered the crystal sacred. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Elian asked. Nira's amber eyes met his. "Trust is difficult. Last who came from stars, they helped Vexians." The revelation hit Elian like a physical blow. Humans had been complicit in the destruction of her people. No wonder she had been so wary at first. "I'm not like them," he said firmly. "I won't betray you." A rustling sound from above interrupted them. Naira immediately extinguished their small light source and motioned for Elian to remain still. Through the darkness, they could hear the heavy footfalls of Vexian scouts passing nearby. In the pitch black, Elian felt Naira's hand find his. Her fingers intertwined with his own, the gesture both seeking and offering comfort. They remained that way for hours, connected in the darkness, until the danger passed. When dawn finally broke, Naira used berries to paint protective symbols on Elian's face, the same patterns that adorned her own skin. "Now we are bonded," she said, her voice soft but resolute. "In my culture, these marks mean I will protect you with my life, and you will protect mine." Elian touched the fresh markings on his face, understanding the significance of the gesture. "I will," he promised. "Always." Her lips curved in a smile, the first true smile he had seen from her. In that moment, Elian knew his life had irrevocably changed. Whatever path lay ahead, they would face it together. Hunters and hunted. The seasonal rains came early to Lumenthia, transforming the forest floor into a treacherous landscape of mud and swollen streams. For 3 weeks, Elian and Naira moved from shelter to shelter, always one step ahead of the Vexian patrols that seemed to be growing in number. "They search more now," Naira observed as they crouched beneath the arched roots of a giant fern. "Something has changed." Elian nodded grimly. His scientific equipment had picked up increased ship traffic in orbit around the planet. Whatever the Vexians were planning, it was escalating. They had grown remarkably attuned to each other during their time on the run. Naira had taught Elian to move silently through the forest, to read the subtle signs of animals and weather. In return, he had shared his knowledge of technology, helping her understand the tools that might give them an advantage against their pursuers. But more than skills had been exchanged between them. Each night, as they huddled together for warmth, the boundaries that separated their worlds seemed to fade a little more. "Tell me again about your ocean," Naira requested as they ate the sweet pulp of fruits she had deemed safe. Their shoulders touched as they sat side by side, a casual intimacy that had become natural to them both. "The Pacific," Elian said, his voice soft with memory. "Water as far as you can see in every direction. On calm days, it's like a mirror reflecting the sky. During storms, the waves can rise taller than those trees." Naira's eyes, bright with fascination, studied his face. "No oceans on Lumenthea, only lakes and rivers. Someday I'll show you," Elian promised, then caught himself. The words had slipped out unbidden, carrying implications he hadn't fully considered until now. Naira's expression turned serious. "You will return to your world?" The question hung between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Elian's research mission had an end date, but the thought of leaving Naira behind had become increasingly unimaginable. "I don't know," he answered honestly. "Everything has changed since I found you." Their eyes met, and Elian felt a pull toward her that transcended the physical. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished, and traced one of the markings on her cheek. Naira leaned into his touch, her eyes drifting closed. The moment was shattered by a mechanical whine overhead, the unmistakable sound of a Vexian scout ship. They sprang apart, instantly alert. "They've never come this far south," Naira whispered, her body tense with alarm. Through the canopy, they could see the ship hovering, its sensors sweeping the area. Elian's blood ran cold as he realized what had happened. "The transmitter in my habitat module. They must have found it." Self-recrimination washed over him. "I never properly disabled the emergency beacon." Naira's gaze hardened, but not with accusation. "We run. Now." They fled deeper into unexplored territory where even Naira's knowledge of the land grew uncertain. The terrain became rockier, the vegetation sparser. By nightfall, they had reached the edge of a vast canyon, its depths obscured by swirling mist. "We cannot cross until light," Naira said, scanning the treacherous drop. "Too dangerous." They found shelter in a shallow cave, both exhausted from their day's flight. As night deepened, the temperature dropped dramatically, a phenomenon Elian hadn't encountered before in this region. "The canyon creates wind currents," he explained, seeing Naira's surprise at the cold. "It pulls down the cooler air from higher elevations." Shivering, they pressed close together, sharing body heat. Naira's skin, normally warm to the touch, felt cool against his. "Your world has such extremes," she murmured. "This is your world," Elian reminded her gently. She looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite decipher. "My world died with my tribe. Now I exist between worlds, neither fully here nor anywhere else." The sadness in her voice moved him deeply. Without thinking, Elian drew her closer, one hand cupping her face. "You're not alone anymore," he whispered. The kiss that followed felt inevitable, a culmination of everything that had been building between them. Her lips were soft against his, hesitant at first, then responding with increasing certainty. When they finally pulled apart, the look in Naira's amber eyes reflected his own wonder. "The stories of my people," she said softly, "speak of souls that recognize each other across time and space. I never understood until now." Elian wanted to respond, to tell her that he felt the same inexplicable connection, but a sound from outside the cave silenced them both, the methodical beeping of a tracking device. The Vexians had found them. Whispers between worlds dawn broke with an eerie silence as Elian and Naira crouched at the mouth of the cave, watching a Vexian patrol move along the canyon rim. The aliens were tall and heavily armored, with articulated exoskeletons that enhanced their already formidable strength. Their helmets concealed any facial features, giving them an impersonal, mechanical appearance that made them all the more frightening. "There are at least 8, Elian whispered, his hand resting on the small blaster he'd salvaged from his equipment. The weapon had limited charges remaining, not nearly enough to take on a full patrol. Naira's eyes narrowed as she surveyed their surroundings. We cannot fight, cannot run. Her gaze shifted to the misty depths of the canyon. We must descend. The canyon walls were treacherous, near vertical in places with loose shale that threatened to give way under the slightest pressure. Using vines harvested from nearby plants, they fashioned crude harnesses and began their perilous descent into the unknown. Halfway down, with the Vexian patrol now tiny silhouettes against the sky above, Naira paused on a narrow ledge. Listen, she urged. At first, Elian heard nothing beyond the whistle of wind through the canyon. Then he caught it, a melodic humming that seemed to emanate from the rocks themselves. The crystal song, Naira breathed, her expression one of reverence. We are close to the Sacred Heart. As they continued their descent, the mist cleared to reveal a breathtaking sight. The canyon floor was carpeted with crystal formations that glowed with an inner light, pulsating in harmony with the humming sound. In the center stood an enormous crystal column that towered nearly to the height where they currently clung. The Great Crystal, Naira explained, her voice filled with awe, the source of all life on Lumenthea. This is why the Vexians came. This is what they seek to harvest. When they finally reached the bottom, Elian felt a strange energy wash over him, a vibration that resonated in his very cells. The sensation was neither unpleasant nor frightening, but rather like being recognized by some vast, ancient intelligence. Naira moved through the crystal garden with reverence, occasionally touching smaller formations with gentle fingertips. My people were the guardians, she said. We kept the balance, ensured the crystals were respected. Without us, her voice faltered. Elian understood. The Vexians weren't just raiders. They were disrupting an ecosystem, a symbiotic relationship between the Sylvari and their world that had likely existed for millennia. As night fell in the canyon, the crystals brightened, bathing everything in a soft, multicolored glow. Seated beside the great crystal, Naira began to sing, a haunting melody that harmonized perfectly with the humming of the stones. A prayer, she explained when she finished. To ask for guidance, they made camp in the shelter of the massive crystal column. The energy emanating from it seemed to ward off the cold, creating a pocket of warmth around them. In this otherworldly sanctuary, with danger temporarily at bay, they found themselves drawn to each other once more. Elian traced the intricate patterns on Naira's arms, marveling at how they seemed to shimmer in the crystal light. Do these all have meaning? He asked. Each tells a story, she replied, guiding his fingers to a spiral pattern near her shoulder. This is for strength in times of change. She moved his hand to a series of interconnected lines across her collarbone. This represents connection to ancestors. His touch lingered there, feeling her pulse quicken beneath his fingertips. And what would the pattern be for two people from different worlds finding each other? Naira's amber eyes met his, filled with an emotion that transcended language barriers. There is no existing pattern for that. We would need to create it. The kiss that followed was deeper than their first, laden with newfound understanding and growing desire. In the glow of ancient crystals, they discovered each other, every difference celebrated, every similarity cherished. Their bodies moved together in a dance as old as time, yet entirely new to them, their whispered words of affection creating a language unique to them alone. Afterward, as they lay entwined, Naira traced invisible patterns on Elian's chest. In my culture, intimacy is sacred, a sharing of life energy. We are bound now in ways that cannot be undone. Elian lifted her hand to his lips. I wouldn't want it undone. Their moment of peace was short-lived. Before dawn, they were awakened by tremors shaking the crystal formations around them. Above, the unmistakable rumble of heavy machinery echoed through the canyon. Mining equipment, Elian said grimly. The Vexians are beginning their harvest. Naira's face paled to a lighter shade of violet. If they extract the great crystal, the balance will be destroyed. Lumenthea will die. The urgency in her voice propelled them into action. They needed a plan, not just to save themselves, but to protect the heart of this world. Examining the crystal formations more closely, Elian noticed that they formed a complex network, almost like a vast neural system with the great crystal as its central node. His scientific training sparked an idea. The crystals communicate, he theorized. That's what the humming is, information being exchanged. If we could amplify that signal somehow, Naira's eyes widened with understanding. The Guardian's call. A ritual my people performed in times of great danger. She pressed her palm against the great crystal. But it requires many voices, many hearts beating as one. Elian placed his hand beside hers. Then will have to be enough. Using components from Elian's remaining equipment, they constructed a crude amplification device. As the Vexian machinery drew closer, Naira taught Elian the ancient Sylvari chant, a complex series of tones that rose and fell like the wind through the canyon. With the amplifier connected to the great crystal and their hands linked, they began the ritual. At first, nothing seemed to happen beyond the crystal glowing slightly brighter. Then, gradually, the humming of the smaller formations intensified, joining their voices in a chorus that grew until it vibrated through the very ground beneath their feet. "It's working," Naira whispered, her face radiant with hope and determination. Above them, the Vexian machinery faltered as the crystal song reached a crescendo that made the canyon walls themselves tremble. Elian and Naira held fast to each other as the world around them transformed into pure, resonant energy. Beyond the stars, the aftermath of what came to be known as the luminous resonance changed everything. The crystal song, amplified beyond anything in recorded Sylvari history, had not only disabled the Vexian mining equipment, but had sent out a beacon that reached across the stars. 3 days after the event, as Elian and Naira emerged from the canyon to survey the damage, they were met with an astonishing sight. Ships unlike any Elian had seen before hovered in the sky, elegant vessels with organic curves that seemed to blend technology with living material. "The far tribes," Naira breathed, her eyes wide with disbelief. They heard the call. The ships belonged to scattered Sylvari communities who had fled to neighboring systems during the initial Vexian raids. The Guardian's call, amplified by Elian's technology and carried by the Crystal Network, had reached them across vast distances, drawing them back to defend their ancestral home. What followed was a swift and decisive reclamation. The Vexians, outmatched by the combined force of returning Sylvari warriors equipped with advanced technology acquired during their exile, retreated from Lumenthia within weeks. For Elian, it was a time of profound revelation. The returning Sylvari brought with them knowledge that expanded his understanding of the universe, of civilizations and alliances he had never imagined existing beyond the limited scope of Earth's interstellar exploration. More significantly, he discovered that he wasn't the first human to form a bond with the Sylvari. Among the returning ships were mixed crews, evidence of cooperation and integration between species that gave him hope for his future with Naira. As Lumenthia began to heal and the scattered tribes re-established their communities, Elian faced the inevitable question that had lingered between them. Would he return to Earth? His research mission had technically ended months ago. The scientific community would be eagerly awaiting his findings, unaware of the momentous discoveries he had made, not just of botanical specimens, but of an advanced civilization and his own heart. "The Council wishes to speak with you," Naira told him one evening as they sat beside a ceremonial fire in the newly established central village. Her position among her people had been restored and elevated. She was now recognized as a key figure in Lumenthia's salvation. The Sylvari Council, comprising elders from each returning tribe, received Elian in a chamber built around a shard of the great crystal. Their reception was solemn but warm. "You have done what no outsider has before," said the eldest. Her violet skin faded to a pale lavender with age. "You have heard the song of our world and added your voice to it. For this we offer you a choice." The choice was unprecedented. Remain on Lumenthia as an honored member of their society, or return to Earth as an official ambassador of the Sylvari people, establishing formal relations between their worlds. "There is a third path," Naira said later, when they were alone beneath the twin moons. "One that allows us both to honor our worlds while building something new." Her proposal was bold. They would journey together, dividing their time between Earth and Lumenthia, becoming bridges between two civilizations that had much to learn from each other. On Earth, they would introduce Sylvari culture and ecological knowledge. On Lumenthia, Elian would continue his research while helping to establish diplomatic protocols for future contact. "It won't be easy," Elian cautioned, thinking of the adjustments Naira would face on his world, the different gravity, atmosphere, social customs. Naira smiled, the markings on her face catching the moonlight. The most meaningful paths rarely are. Their departure for Earth came with the next seasonal change. The ship provided by the Council was small but comfortable, designed for long-distance travel. As Lumenthia receded below them, its luminous forests glowing like veins of light across the dark continent, Elian felt not loss, but anticipation. In the private cabin they shared, Naira unveiled a surprise, a small crystal formation carefully removed from the canyon with the Council's blessing. A piece of my world to carry with us, she explained, placing it in a specially designed container. And this, she took his hand and pressed it to a new marking on her forearm, is the symbol we created, for two souls who found each other across the stars. The journey to Earth took several weeks by conventional space travel. They used the time to prepare, Elian teaching Naira more about human culture, technology, and social norms, Naira continuing his education in Sylvari language and philosophy. "Will your people accept me?" she asked one night, a rare moment of vulnerability showing through her usual confidence. Elian gathered her close. "Some will be frightened at first. Others curious, but they'll come to see what I see, how remarkable you are." When Earth finally appeared on their view screen, a blue-green jewel suspended in the blackness of space, Elian felt a strange mixture of familiarity and foreignness. He had left his home as one person and was returning as another. Their arrival caused the sensation Elian had expected. Scientific communities mobilized to document the first official contact with the Sylvari. Political leaders scrambled to establish protocols for this unexpected diplomatic situation. Media outlets clamored for interviews with the human scientist who had returned with an alien partner. Through it all, Elian and Naira remained steadfast in their commitment to each other and to their vision of cooperation between worlds. They established a home that blended elements of both cultures, earth plants growing alongside carefully transplanted Lumenthian specimens, human technology interfacing with Sylvari crystal-based devices. 3 years after their return to Earth, they stood together on the observation deck of a new type of vessel, a joint human-Sylvari design that incorporated the best of both worlds' technologies. Below them, a mixed crew prepared for the inaugural journey of the first official diplomatic mission to Lumenthia. "Did you ever imagine this?" Naira asked, her hand finding his as they watched the activity below. The integration had not always been smooth, but the progress was undeniable. Elian smiled, remembering the injured alien woman he had found in a forest light years away. "Not specifically this," he admitted. "But from the moment I found you, I knew my life would never be the same." Naira's amber eyes, now familiar with Earth's sunlight and seasons, held the same depth of feeling they had shown in the Crystal Canyon. "Our worlds are forever connected now." "As are we," Elian replied, drawing her close as the stars beckoned before them, promising new discoveries and adventures to come. In the vastness of the universe, they had found in each other the rarest treasure of all, a love that transcended differences, that built bridges rather than walls, that saw in diversity not division but possibility. Together, they had rewritten not just their own stories but the story of two worlds reaching across the stars to forge a shared future.